So I sent the videos. I think everybody got all the videos, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. All right. So what do we do today? Um, I think what I'll do today is, there are a couple of major points to be covered, So I think what we'll do today is we'll talk about another important topic, which is the RDS, which everybody wanted to look at it, relational database services. This is a very interesting and very important topic. So I would say probably we will look into Amazon relational database service. So how many of you, if you can just type a response here and say what all, how many of you are familiar with the databases, any type? If you know database, say yes, and also if you can type one word that which database you know, it will be great. What type of databases you at least know. I'm not expecting a DBA here, but if you are a DBA, please say that also. Okay, so I see some Oracle guys, I see some SQL Server guys, SQL, okay. Okay, that's fine. So when we talk about databases, there are there are two types of databases mainly. One is relational databases and non-relational databases. Example for relational databases, relational databases will have a table structure, you query something, you get the response back.
Deepu, I'm not sure if you're sharing anything on the screen, but there's
I
nothing.
am, I
Nothing to.
am. Can you guys see my screen or not?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I am sharing the screen. So can you just close and open it? Is it good? Yeah. Devinda, can you mute? All right, thanks. All right, so basically there are SQL relational databases and non-SQL databases. Examples for relational databases are probably the most popular databases are MySQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, and so on. When it comes to non-SQL databases, which is a new trend, especially in the big data market, MongoDB, DynamoDB, and so on, they are non-SQL databases. So big data analytics and all use that a lot. I don't have any idea about those things, but I do see that, for big data analytics or anything related to big data, pretty much they use non-SQL non-SQL databases, not relational databases. That means, you can just store the data without any relationship. It will be all kind of junk, and then they do something called as map reduce. They do some mapping and then they reduce that using some tools, and then they can get the correct values. That is what the map reduce, elastic map reduce, EMR and all. Amazon is also having Hadoop clusters and all is actually doing it, something like that. Again, I don't think I should know. I should be talking about that because that is not my area. But relational databases is very popular even today in the industry. Everybody is using it. So your company has a database servers. So for example, when I was working for Bank of America and BlackRock and all, they have SQL Server clusters. or Oracle clusters. You guys kind of know what a cluster is because we discussed when we were looking at elastic load balances. Clusters are basically meant for high availability because you can imagine if a database server goes down, your entire application goes down. So the high availability of databases are very, very important. So there are many ways you can make a database highly available. And one of those major way of doing that is actually using clustering. When you do clustering, if one server goes down, another server will automatically take it. There will be a small momentary disconnect can happen. Some smart applications nowadays are smart enough to automatically re-establish that connection, and you don't even see any failures. If a SQL Server database fails or failover, that's the right terminology, failover happens. It failed from one server to another server. Normally, the latest newer generation applications, you don't even see any problem. But legacy applications do fail, and then you need to restart the applications and all. But at least the good thing is one server, you just imagine you have a SQL Server running on a server, and if that server is having a hardware problem, or if that server is having some operating system problem, and that server blue screens, what do you do? If you do not have another server, then it's a big downtime. Your downtime is talking about 3 to 4 to 5 hours because you need to now build a new server, configure it, patch it, antivirus configuration, everything, and then you restore the database. Then you give it a new IP address. It's a lot of things. But whereas when you have a clustering environment, the cluster will come up, or the SQL Server will immediately start running on another server in less than 10-15 seconds. So there is a disconnect when a failover happens, and that is very momentarily disconnect. It might not even disconnect in some places. So it's very important that you configure your databases in a highly available fashion, and that is what companies do. Even though companies have all these clustering and all, and I still think one of the major challenges in IT environments or in IT managers is to maintain these type of large clusters. It can get very complicated. In fact, I have worked on certain 10 node, 12 node SQL Server clusters. So let me see, I can find out a picture here to show you how the clustering. So look at this. This is a simple picture of a 2-node Microsoft cluster. This is one server. That is another server. And you can see that there is a shared hard disk between these two servers. This all requires Microsoft clustering skills and all. I'm not going to get into that. In order to share a hard disk between two operating systems, between two servers, it's not a simple thing. Microsoft normally don't allow two computers to read and write from one hard disk, and also there are certain settings you need to do. At one time, one of the server will be an active and the other one will be a passive. But when something goes wrong with server A, server B will automatically take it. And you can see that SQL Server is also installed on both the servers, but at a time only one server will act as a SQL Server, the other one will be stopped. But when your cluster fail over, the SQL Server automatically start here and it will take the services and things like that. So this is a cluster configuration. Look at here, there is a multi-node SQL cluster here. You can see that this is not again multi-node. This is a web applications and all. That is again, it has a SQL Server shared storage there. I'm just trying to see if I can show you a little more complex SQL Server clusters. Typically it is 2-node, but I have seen and in fact I worked on large this cluster. So here look at this one. This is another example, node 1, node 2, node 3, Windows Server failover clustering. This is a 3-node cluster. Each of them is running separate database servers and things like that. It can get very, very complicated, and it can create problems. But it gives a level of confidence to application owners and database administrators that the SQL Server is pretty much available all the time. So this is what a SQL clustering means in high level configuration. If I say SQL cluster is like that. So we have seen database administrators, right? So managing a SQL cluster is a combination of work and effort and things from a server team as well as the database team. Normally the server team, whether it is Unix team or Windows team, they configure the Microsoft clustering. They configure the cluster, and there is a lot of things you need to do in order to configure a server or a couple of servers in a Microsoft clustering setup. And once it is configured, then there are certain specific steps you need to follow in order to install SQL Server. Simply installing SQL Server, that is not the way you need to install it on a cluster. There are certain additional steps and additional queries and all you need to do in order to set up a Microsoft SQL Server cluster or Oracle cluster. And once that is configured, then the DBAs will take care of that and they manage it. So if you look at in my environments and all, or in any environments, if you look at it, you can see that a database administrator's job is to manage and maintain the cluster, backup of the cluster, upgrade and configuration of the cluster. All these database services like work the DBA has to do. They have to make backups properly. They have to make sure that the disaster recovery thing is set up correctly. Something like they have Microsoft SQL Server has a lot of transaction logs, mirroring, always on. There are different type of clustering options are available. They have to maintain that. In fact, every time when SQL Server needs a new update, SP3, Service Pack 3 or Service Pack 4 or 5 comes up, they need to upgrade the SQL servers. They need to upgrade the underlying Windows operating system. That requires a lot of coordination. So it is not an easy task. So the risk of failures are also high. So what Amazon is saying is, why do you want to spend your valuable time managing these database servers and SQL servers and clustering and adding all these complexities and all? You DBAs, you are a database administrator. You focus on your business. You focus on providing the optimal results to your customers. Provide on improving the performance of your database. Work on improving the data quality, improving the query response time and things like that. And don't worry about backups and encryptions and availability and all. If you look at DBAs nowadays, they spend half of their time or maybe a little more than half of their time just for managing these type of clusters. And they only get remaining time for backups and restores and things like that. But they spend a lot of time managing the clusters, and above all, the Windows or Linux administrators also have to spend a lot of time. So what Amazon is saying is, why do you want to do that? We can provide you a highly available database as a service. Amazon Relational Database or RDS make it easy to set up, operate, and scale relational databases in the cloud. It provides cost-efficient and resizable capacity. Remember, you have an option to resize it. You can actually scale it while managing the time-consuming database administration task. freeing up your focus on your application and business. So they are saying we will manage the time-consuming database administration related tasks, maintaining the cluster, upgrading the servers, backing up your databases and all that things. We will take care of it. You just focus on application and the business. That is what end of the day the business needs. That is what end of the day the company needs. They don't care about who manages it, how it is managed and all. You getting what I'm saying? So this is what is Amazon's relational databases are. So it is running as a service. All you need to do is you just connect to it and start using it. So before doing that, I just want to go to our EC2, and we have a server that is installed with the SQL Server, isn't it? We just installed a server. This server, we installed it using SQL Server. Let me see, Windows Server. I don't know the password for this. I'm not remembering. Do we have a key pair attached to it? Where is the key pair? They changed those things now. No key pair here.
Maybe we can try welcome 22.
Yeah, I'm just finding where is the key pair option. There should be an option that says key pair is there or not. I'm not seeing that. Okay, here it is. We are using the class 10 key pair. All right, let me start this. So I'm going to show you with the SQL Server because that is what I know. I'm not an Oracle guy, but those who know Oracle, it is pretty simple. So we will go. I'm going to start a SQL Server. This is a standalone SQL Server with Windows Server and SQL Server on it. We can start it. We can connect to that, and we can see it. So let us take a look at the SQL Server for a minute and see how that SQL Server. So this is that something you are managing. You who installed the SQL Server, you installed it, you manage it, you back it up, you configure it. Now if tomorrow if Microsoft releases a newer version of SQL Server, it is your job to make sure that it is upgraded. It is your job to make sure that it is patched and maintained it. Whereas in the case of a relational database services, RDS, you don't have to worry about all that things. Amazon will take care of it. So the DBAs are not very happy. In fact, when I started implementing these things in my current environment, and then I was talking to the DBAs, one of the things they said was, completely DBAs, they are the database administrators. They have the right to say what. They said, we are not comfortable with RDS. We don't want to use RDS. We wanted, even if you're going to cloud, you go, that's fine, but we wanted SQL servers like this in the cloud. We wanted to manage them the traditional way that we manage it. We wanted to patch and upgrade and maintain them the way we do it in our on-prem databases, data centers. But there are risks here. Now this is a single standalone server. If that server crashes or if somebody deletes that server, you're done. Now you're talking about another 3-4 hours to bring it up. If you are so concerned about that, then you can look at always on. Actually, in fact, in my cloud environment, we do have some always on setup. Always on setup is a Google, this Microsoft SQL Server always on. Always on is a new way of providing high availability to Microsoft clustering. In this case, you can look at here this picture. There is no shared hard disk. Do you see any shared hard disk between the two servers? But this is also a Microsoft clustering. In this case, each server has its own local database, but there is always a synchronization. So if you write a table or if you write any data here, immediately it will write here. It will write to both the disk, and then only it will give a commit response back to the client. So this is a very popular thing now. You don't need any SAN or anything at the back end. You can use a local hard disk, and it also requires some Microsoft clustering and all. This is what Microsoft is going now. Always on clustering is very, very famous. It started with the 2008 and 2012. It becomes more popular, but with 2016 and all, always on uh, is greatly and widely used in the industry. I would say that. Okay. Um, always on is something very interesting, and that is what actually we are using in our environment for SQL databases, because our DBAs are very adamant and they said they don't want to use RDS. Now, you know why they said they don't want to use RDS? Anybody?
Yeah, they want to keep control. They don't want their job to go away, right?
Absolutely. That is the only reason they don't want to go for that, because if I am taking all that, right now we have a 25 plus DBA sitting there and sleeping most of the time. I don't even see these guys coming to work, and they are saying that they are doing a hell lot of work, but that is their life. Now, if I am taking all these backups and restores and cluster management and upgrades and all, what is left for them to do is only just to manage the data. If there is a problem or there is some tune-up you need to do. So instead of 25 people, we might need only 4 or 5 DBAs going forward. And that is happening. So these guys are kind of scared, and I understand that, and that is why they don't want to go with that. But from a company perspective, from a business perspective, from a high availability perspective, I personally cannot accept what they are saying. For me, as a cloud administrator, I wanted to make sure that I am providing the best of the best services. I wanted to look at the cost effectiveness. I wanted to see the licensing cost. There's a lot of factors needs to be considered. So now that we started using some relational databases little bit in our office, people are the DBA slowly started learning it. Again, we're not using RDS for production at this point, but eventually we will use it. RDS is not very cheap. I have a friend of mine who is based in North Carolina. He runs a big online business called Check Appointments. I think I can show you the site. It's called checkappointments.com. This is their site. This is my classmates' company. One of the very high. They are partners to ING Direct. You can see Stanford, Nationwide, Uber, and all is actually using this Addis company for this thing. So in fact, he is one of my very close friend and provide me some help for my sometimes for my needs for H1s and stuff. Anyway, so that entire product, he has not only that, he has 2 other company products too. But what I'm trying to tell you is that entire thing, check appointments, mail view, all that things are running in Amazon. Okay. And Addy was using relational database services for almost last 2 years. But recently when I talked to him, he said he moved from RDS to local MySQL database. He was using MySQL. So he's saying that the MySQL running on local instances like this is he's seeing that it is more cheaper for him. But there is a lot of additional work. You have to manage the databases, you need to manage the backups, you need to manage the configuration and stuff like that. But RDS is not cheap, but it gives you the top class performance as well as high availability. So I would say RDS is the best way to go, but for a individual business or small companies and all, probably it may not make sense, but for enterprise companies, no doubt RDS is the answer. So let's go and connect to our server here and try to get connect to this server for a minute.
I don't think you can connect, right?
Yeah, because this server is not in A public network, right?
Right.
172.10.5.73. So it is internal. It does not have a private IP address. All right. So can anybody tell me how can I connect this server now? I want to connect this.
Give an elastic IP and then connect.
It won't work like that. Giving an elastic IP to this server, you think it will work?
No, maybe bastion host and then
we have to go to the routing table of this thing and put what do you call the IGW into the routing table and all, correct?
yeah, anywhere.
So let's do one thing here. Let's go and do that. So let's go to the subnet here where this machine is. So this is the subnet. I'm doing something outside the box here, okay, but we have to do that. I don't have time to connect now. So let's go here to the VPC. Find the subnet. So this is the subnet, DB5 subnet. Now we need to find out the route table attached to it. So this is the route table attached to it. You can see that the route table don't have an IGW. So I'm going here and I'm going to routes. I'm going to edit. I'm going to add 0.0.0.0.0/0. I will put IGW. Okay. So now that subnet is a public subnet. Are you guys all following me? All right. So we just made that public subnet. Now what we need to do, we have to go to the elastic IP and we'll go here and we will associate this IP to SQL Server. Okay, I did that. So now we are good. So now we can go here to the EC2 and try to connect to our server because it now has a public IP address. Everybody following me?
Yes.
All right, so that's good. So let's take this, we'll connect this, good. Get the password one more time. Remote desktop. We have it here, and do you think it will connect now? It will connect, right? So this is that server, and I'm logging into that server right now. So this is right here. I mean, guys, do you all understand, without a bastion host, what I did is actually not the right way to do it, but we exposed our private network to public and we gave it a public IP address and we are good, correct? Everybody is clear on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, so this is the server now. So if you go to this server and look at it, I have a SQL Server Management Studio here. So this is the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. This is a standalone server that came with SQL Server. I think we use this server. It is running SQL Server 2016. That's fine. So I just want to show you how SQL Server looks like. This is how a SQL Server looks like. That's a server. We are using Windows Authentication. And I'm connected to that server. So this is a database server. You can see that the server is connected. If you want to connect another server, you can always specify your service address here. You can specify your service address here and you can connect. I'm not going to do that, but right now you can see that it has some databases. If you want to create a new database, you can create a database like this. You can call it as test. It creates the transaction log, it creates the database, you can create file options, you can make it sure who is accessing, what should be the recovery model. There is a lot of settings you can do. I'm not going to get into all that thing. So I created a database here. So this is my database. The database will have its tables and stuff like that, and you can use that. And now this database has its properties. You can see who can access it. You can see that different people here who has access to it. If you want to give any special permissions and things like that, you could do a lot of things here. So this is what a database, and then you can see that you can configure applications here. You can if you want to configure it always on, you could do that. You have a management. There is a lot of things where you can create maintenance plans. You can do backup plans. You can create a lot of things. So there's a lot of things you can do with that. You can see the security where you can see the logins. Here is where you create all your user accounts. You can integrate that with your Active Directory users. You can create local users. You can create different server roles, for all this purpose. Everything is right here, and you can do that. By default, Microsoft SQL Server has a certain databases by itself that is called master, a model, MSDB. These are all default databases that comes with SQL Server for its SQL Server's own operations, and sometimes applications take advantage of these databases too. I just want to mention that because of a certain reason. But any SQL servers you look, you will see this TempDB, master, and model, and things like that. You will see these databases. That is called system databases, and then you can create your own databases. Some companies create hundreds of databases like this. Each database belongs to different applications. So here is the SQL Server properties. You can do a lot of things on the SQL Server. You can tune it. You can configure it for different collation. You can tune it for memory. You can specify how much memory it should use, how many processors it should use. All these kind of things you can do with SQL Server. So this is a SQL Server. That is how the database is configured. Okay. All right, so now let's go back to our RDS and let's go and create a relational database stuff. So here it is. So as I said, when you create a relational database service or RDS, what exactly happens is Amazon is creating a Microsoft cluster or an Oracle cluster at the back end. You don't see those instances. You don't see those servers, you don't see those hard disks, but Amazon is automatically creating something in the back end, but it will provide you all the things. So we're going to create a Amazon cluster. So you can come here and say, launch a database. So we're going to create a new database. Okay. So when you click on start creating databases, these are the relational databases. Remember, okay, only relational databases. Amazon has support for all these databases. There is something called Amazon Aurora. This is Amazon's built-in SQL database. Amazon is a high-performance MySQL compatible enterprise class database. Very cheap, they are saying. It is very powerful, 5 times powerful than MySQL. It can do a lot of things. It is used, I've seen that it is used in some data warehousing kind of situations. Amazon recommends using Amazon Aurora. MySQL is another database very widely used in the industry. If you're a Unix administrator, I'm pretty sure you might have come across MySQL databases, widely used in the cloud industry. MariaDB is another database. Postgres is another SQL database. Oracle is another database. Oracle has different versions. You can see that Oracle Enterprise Edition, Standard Edition, Standard Edition 1. These are all the different versions of Oracle. If you want any one of these versions of Oracle, you can configure here. And then comes the SQL Server. SQL Server also has multiple versions. You can have SQL Server Express Edition, which is eligible for free tier. You can have SQL Server Web, you can have SQL Server Standard Edition, SQL Server Enterprise Edition. As you go on different higher versions, it is going to cost you a lot of money because certain instance types are only supported. Here you can see that Microsoft SQL Server Express Edition is an affordable database management system. So if your database is less than 10 gigabyte and all, you could probably do that. So I'm going to give it an attempt with the SQL Server Express Edition, but we can try any, or you guys can try any one of this edition. It's not a problem. Okay. So I'm going to click on this particular edition here, and you can see that it is going to create a DB-T2 micro instance as well as up to 20 gigabyte of storage. So this this particular database requires a db2.t2 micro instance. So in the basically when you create this, it creates a database at the backend. But you don't need to worry about what server it is, how it is, and all. It is not our option. I would not. I would say, I think maybe we may miss some options. So I just wanted to do a standard edition. It is going to cost a little money for me, but I think I'll do it with a standard edition so that I can show you the more options here. So this is the best option. So when you do standard edition, it's not free. It is going to cost me some money. But there are two ways you can configure your SQL Server relational, SQL Server RDS build. One is for production and another one is for dev and test. The difference between production and dev test is if you do production, it is going to use multi-AC deployment. You see that multi-AC deployment. What is that means is Amazon is going to basically create two instances in two different availability zones, and they are going to mirror it. There is an option called mirroring in Amazon. So they're going to mirror it. So if you write something here, immediately it will get right here. So if something goes wrong here, you will have another server. So that is the multi-AC deployment in production kind of workloads. They are strongly recommending to use this because this requires double the servers. Excuse me. There will be some data transfer going between the availability zones. So there is some additional cost for it, but I would strongly recommend to do that in production environments. I'm not going to do this here. We will do this SQL Server Standard Edition. In this case, you will not be getting a multi-AC deployment, but you can always change that to a multi-AC deployment any point in time. Okay, so we will go with the SQL Server Standard Edition in a dev test kind of environment where it is not going to deploy a multi-AC environment. Once you do that, you can see that there are some licensing model. You can have the licensing from Amazon, licensing included, or you can bring your own license. If your company is already paid for SQL Server, licenses are very, very costly. So if you want to bring in your own license, you can do that, or you pay for Amazon to pay for the license. Now this will come license included means if Amazon is charging you $5 for an hour, probably $1 is for the license. But it is a dynamic way of charging, pay as you go model. Database engine version, these are all the different SQL Server versions, 10, 11, 12 and 13 and all. I would probably go with this version 12. I think version 12 is SQL Server 2012, I think. I think you can do that. I don't know why it is doing this. Okay, so you can do that, and then you can select. This is the thing. So standard edition, you can build how big you want. So these are the different instance types. When you're building a server, you need an instance in the backend, correct? So Amazon is asking you, hey, what type of instance you want for your database? So if you use the smallest, I think you can go is DB-M1 small. It is going to be 1 CPU and 1.7 gig RAM. But you can even go up to larger things with 15 gig RAM, 68 gig RAM. You see that. See, there is another one called 32 CPUs and 244 gig option. So if you want a database server in that capacity, you can, but you can imagine how much it is going to cost you. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with this DB-M1 small option. So you can see that, the options are all there. You can specify your time zone. So let's go and put our time zone. See here, so even in dev test environment, you can create multi-AC deployment. That means, a clustered environment you can create. If you want, you can say it is called mirroring. If you want, you can actually do that mirroring. In this case, it is going to build 2 servers. So I'm not going to do that, but you can, of course, you can make it a multi-AC deployment. You don't need to do any rocket science. All you need to do is you just select and click next, click next. It will create the clustering, but you don't need to worry about the clustering complications. You don't need to worry about anything. Amazon will take care of that. Storage, again, you have a lot of options here. you can go with the general purpose SSD, or you can go with provisioned IOPS. So if you have very concerned about if you have a write intensive database and all, I would definitely recommend to go with the provisioned IOPS so that you can determine how much IOPS you need for your thing. So don't worry about, I know somebody asked me in the previous, will it give me the required permissions? 2 days back, we had a discussion with a client that I'm helping in New York. Karthik, you may know, the YS project that we are planning to do. The DBA came and he asked, so, okay, you are doing in cloud. Is it what type of storage? Is it highly SSD drives? Is it RAID 10 and things like that? He was asking. I said, there is no RAID 10 or RAID 5 or anything in Amazon. You specify what is the level of performance you want, and there are options to do that. So you can do provisioned IOPS or anything. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going with a general purpose drive because I don't want to spend that much money. Minimum required storage for a standard edition is 200 gigabyte. So it's 200 gigabytes. That is the thing. So you cannot give 100 gig. If you try to give 100 gig, you're going to get an error message. Okay, you can try that, but minimum is 200 gig is required. See here it is saying minimum is 200 gig and maximum is 4 terabytes. So there are other options to improve the site, but maximum you can go up to is 4 terabyte for that. So this is all you need to provide here. Okay. And then you come and specify a name that is unique for you. So you need to give a name for your database. So let's call it as, class 10 DB. You need to give a username for it. So I'm going to say class 10 user. And let's give it a password. I'm going to use the same thing, welcome to. So we created a username, we created a password, and we specified the name of the database. And you click next. Now you need to specify the availability zone, which VPC you want, because you need your servers to communicate and all lot of things. So you can actually specify, security group and things like that. So you can actually prefer no preferences here. Security group, you should, it needs security groups. So you can specify, create a default security group. It will automatically create because, it needs port number 1443 and things like that. You can always change that. So I'm actually going with a new security group. Windows authentication, Microsoft SQL Server Windows authentication. If you want, you can integrate that with your Active Directory, or you can use Microsoft directory service that is provided by Amazon. We're not going to do that, but if you want, you can integrate that with Active Directory. This is the default port number. If you want, you can change that port number. Parameter group and option group, I will talk about that once we put that. So, those who know databases, I'll explain this. Parameter group and option group are different settings and properties for your database. That's all you need to understand. If you are a DBA guy, you know what these things are. But this is, I would definitely say it is the decision of a DBA to make what type of parameter group, and all you need to do it. Do you want encryption? Do you want to copy tags? You can do all that. Now coming to the backup, how many days you want to back it up? I'm going to say I wanted to do, just backup every 2 days or 1 day. Backup window, you can specify a particular window. I can say that, okay, start my backup at so and so time, or you can say no preferences, then Amazon will do the backup whenever it feels it is. Do you want to do upgrades and things like that? You want to do Amazon to do the minor version upgrades, If you say yes or no, if you say yes, Amazon will automatically do the upgrade for your servers. You don't need to worry about anything. They will do the upgrades and patches and all when it is needed. But you can specify, when you want your backups. You can say, okay, at Sunday at 1 o'clock in the AM. You can say, duration for 1 hour. Do that patching. So you can specify when you want to do that. You want to patch it or not. These are all your options here for doing these things. So this is going to create in any one of my Virginia availability zones. It's going to create some security groups for this purpose. And this is the port number, all these things. Any questions here so far? Everybody is clear on this so far? So then you say launch DB, and you can see that it failed. Okay. So it says that we need something called a subnet group. I thought it will do it. So let's go and create a subnet group. How do we do that? Okay, so we have to cancel this for now. So we have to create, so let me explain this a minute, parameter group, security group, and things like that. We have to create some security groups here.
I think there's an option for subnet groups in the bottom.
Yeah. All right, so let me talk about this parameter group for a minute here. So I just wanted to show you what is this parameter. Working with DB parameter group. So you manage your DB engine configuration, the use of parameters in DB. So basically, when you configure, this is more of a database thing, DB parameter groups there will be, what should be your version, what type of language you should use, what type of storage settings you need. All those things you can specify in a DB parameter group. That is what it is. You manage your DB engine configuration through the use of parameters in DB parameter group. So it is the job of a DBA. I don't know basically each of these values, but it is the job of a DBA to configure these parameter groups. The same thing with this options group. Options group is also very similar to the DB group. It is, some DB engines of additional features. There are some additional features your SQL Server can get. So here I think they will provide, some DB engines offer additional features that make it easy to manage data and provide additional things. Amazon RDS uses options group to enable and configure these features, and option group can specify. So let me see what are the, there are some additional features you can configure using options group. What are those additional features? I think it's something to do with encryption. I forgot all those options, but there are, you can actually, okay, here is a database relevant document, a SQL Server, options for database. So if you click on that, yeah, here it is a thing. See, you want native backup, you want transparent data encryption. These are additional features that you can add for your SQL Server. If you want these features like native backup and restores or transparent data encryption and things like that, you need to specify that in the options group. Parameter group contains all the parameters that is required for your environment. Okay, so another thing is the subnet groups. I think we need to create a DB subnet group because it is required for that clustering. So you can actually create a VPC and select, and you can create certain subnets for this particular thing, because Amazon has to build 2 servers, and that server should be in a particular subnet. It should have its security groups and things like that. So that is the issue here. So we need to create this subnet group to, we need to create a subnet group, and then you have to provide that. So I'm going to say class 10 DB subnet group. I don't know, we can view that long name. We specify our VPC. And then it is asking what are the availability zones. I'm saying 1A, subnet ID, it is asking which place. I'm going to put it in our 5 subnet. Do that, and it's created that DB subnet group. Okay, so you create that. Okay, so basically it needs 2 availability zones, they're saying. So I think we need to do that, and now we need to put another subnet also. So let me put this one also. So it needs 2, because even though you are doing only, remember, when we are not doing multi-AC deployment, correct? We are going to do it only in one AC, but there is an option to do multi-AC option at the time of deployment. You have seen that, correct? So Amazon is making sure that you have your availability zones already defined. You have already defined your subnets. So in future, if you decide, okay, you know what, I cannot run this on a single instance anymore. I want a multi-AZ deployment. I wanted high availability. All you need to do is you just check that box. Amazon automatically creates another node and put it in this second database. You getting what I'm saying? So that is why it is asking you cannot do with one, because when you're doing this, if you are doing SQL Express, I'm sure it will not ask any of these things. But when you're doing a standard edition or an enterprise edition of Oracle or SQL Server, it needs all these settings, So you understand, multi-AZ deployment, that is why we are specifying the 2 availability zones, and we are specifying these are the subnets we want to do. So now you create, it will create that for you, and now we can go back and create our database instance. So I'm going to do that. We'll select SQL Server, we'll go to SQL Server Standard Edition, we'll go with the dev test. So let's say license included. Let's select this 12 version. We'll select this instance type. We'll select the Eastern Standard Time Zone, multi-AC deployment. I'm not saying yes now. If you select, it will use both the things. So let's take class 10 DB, class 10 user, welcome 22. All right, so we did all these things. And then I'm going to click next. These are the advanced settings page. This is where you need to specify your databases, and also now you can see a security group. So it is asking, I think, availability zones, we don't need to specify anything here. I don't know, something changed here. RDS launch wizard, I think we'll select that option. Hold on one second here. Okay, let it create new. It should create a new one. So new availability zone preference, I'm not saying whether it should create in here or anywhere. It is going to create in either one of that thing. I don't think we have an option to pick that. Okay. So those things are all good. DB parameter group. See, if you have a DB parameter groups, multiple one, you could select that. This is the option group. See, if you have an option group created that's saying encryption is needed, then you should select that here. Otherwise, you use the default options group. Okay. So I'm just going to make this backup to 2 days. Backup window, I'm saying no preferences. Patching is needed. I'm just saying no preferences for that also. And let's see now it will work or not. Still, it's showing a problem. Why is that? Okay, that's not good. Subnets. Where is the subnet option? Why is it not showing here? This should show up here. Oh, okay. Now it came up. So, okay. Now it came up. All right. So now we are good. So we can now specify our VPC. We can specify the subnet group. See, remember we created that subnet group? So it just show up. I didn't refresh it. That's why. So it is now showing the subnet group. Whether you want publicly available or not, you can actually say, it is publicly available. I'm just putting so that it gets a public IP address, or if you want only internally, you don't need to. But right now it's going to give a public availability. Availability zones are fine. Security groups in this VPC, what are the security? So it is going to create a new security group. If you want, you can use your existing security groups. SQL Server security group will work, which has all our settings. I would probably put that security group which has already the SQL Server connections and stuff like that. You're getting, so you can customize that later. I think that's it. And now you say launch deep. So now it is launching that database. Okay, so now it is creating the database instance. Let's go and look at that. So you can see that it is creating a SQL Server database service or RDS at the back end. It is going to take some time. It has to create the database, but you don't see any instances. If you go to your instances, you don't see anything, but it is creating an instance in the back end. Once it is created completely, it takes some time. It will create, it will take a backup, it will do quite some things. So we got to wait for it. You're going to see something called as an endpoint. That is the connection string, and that is what your database is pointing to. So I want to show you how I connect it. So let us just wait. Once you do that, you can go here, and so you can see in a multi-graph view, you have different ways. You can see all these monitoring, the performance. You can see here in one window, you can see, latest metrics. It will show all these things. We'll see all that things coming up in a minute here. So you can do all that. So you can see the details here. You can see that, that is the class 10, the servers, endpoint is not yet available because it is still in the process of building it. There is a ARN for your SQL Server. This is the SQL Server Enterprise Edition version. License is included. It says this is in that VPC. It is in this subnet group. These are the subnets. This is the security group attached to it. So you can actually look at that security group. You can see the space. You can see that, DB instance status it is creating. Is it multi-AZ? No, you can always change it to multi-AZ. Backups, it's going to do 7-year backup window is this time. Everything is created right here. So if you want to create tags, you can create the tags for your thing. Let's go to this SQL Server security group and see whether 1443 is open here. Okay, we have 1443 open here, so we can connect to that database. That's good. So let's go back to RDS and see what is happening. So if you click on the instance, you can see that it is creating that instance right now here. So it is still going to take some time to create it. So you can see that it is creating. It is not multi-AC replication, encryption, nothing is there right now. It is creating that instance. Any questions here so far, anybody? So the key challenge now is to bring this up. This is very, very important topic. Okay, this is a very, very important topic. This is how you create a SQL Server or any relational database services as a service. You can configure it and make it work, and it's highly available, high performance. But I am now paying for a DB M1 small instance. I have to pay for that money. I have to pay for 200 gig storage. All these things are already Amazon is going to charge me. Apart from that, Amazon is also going to charge me for a public IP address, and they're also going to charge me for
License.
correct, license. That is what I was mentioning, because license is included in that. SQL Server license is but it's not going to cost a lot of money. I don't know how much it's going to cost me, but I have never seen a very huge amount. But anybody wanted, I would say you strongly go ahead and try it. It won't cost you more than $5 or $10. Okay, but it's very important that you you plan this and deploy this and get to know about this. So it is still creating, it is to build that server. So basically what Amazon is doing right now is they are launching an instance, and in that instance they are creating a SQL server and providing you with all that details. If you go to the details, you can see, and you can also see the logs. There is a lot of logging information. So this is one of the pioneer products. So they have a lot of information in this option where you can see a lot of events and things like that. Let it come up. The database is not up yet. That is why. Once the database is ready, you're going to see an endpoint coming up here. These things are all normal, even subscription notification and all. You can always configure that. If your server comes up, how do you send a notification? You know how to create an SNS notification. You know how to configure alerts. So you can do that with the help of these things. Snapshots, basically snapshots are backups. You can take a snapshot of your database if you want. So that is used for backups and things like that. So wait, it will come up fast. It is taking some time because, don't think it is slow or anything. It is not slow because they have to configure that server. They have to configure the database, install the SQL. There's a lot of scripts and all needs to be run. So it takes normally 5-10 minutes to come up. Okay, it will be up very soon. So, you can see that, Amazon RDS pricing, there is different pricing options are available. These are the different instance types, for standard latest generation DB4, M4 large, this is the combinations they are providing. Let's look at SQL Server on-demand pricing. So you can see the pricing here. I never looked at it actually. Let me see. On-demand pricing. So standard edition, US Virginia. What are we using? DB. What is that our instance type? DB M1 small, right? It's not even showing here.
I think ours was a free one.
No.
Huh?
Okay, it should be here. Multi-AC DB M14. It's not even showing. Anyway, doesn't matter. You can see that, it is not that costly. You don't have to worry too much here. Even if you're using DB M4 large, it's only 97 cents. an hour. So if you run it for 1 hour, you're going to cost 1 hour, $1. So I think you should definitely try. Even the biggest DB3, 8 times large is only $12 for an hour. So you can definitely pick one of these, DBM4 or something like that. It will cost you like $1 or $2. So you can play around with for 1 or 2 hours, take some backups, take some connections, try to do certain things, fail over certain things. It's not going to cost you a hell lot of money. You should definitely try this. Don't scared and, oh, it's going to cost a lot of money. No, it's not going to cost that much. As if you're running it, it is going to cost you money, but it is not that costly. Okay. All right. It's still not ready yet. It is still not ready. Any questions here, anybody so far? No? Is it all good? Everybody is clear on this? That's good. So let it come up. So you can actually go here and see some more details of it. You can see the database details. So once it is up, you can actually make some changes here to these kind of things. Okay, so it is still in the process of creating the database. Not the database, in fact, the database server.
So how about the server name? Like, we have our naming convention, in your organization. Where do we just log into server, change the name over there, or?
No, there is nothing like, you're going to get a connection string endpoint. That is what I wanted to show you. So there is no such name or anything. It will give you a string where you can connect. So we'll see that in a
Oh,
minute.
okay. So how do you implement that within your, I mean, let's say you have half an app, half Amazon, half, in-house,
Hmm.
or like a private cloud. So can we communicate with each other
Oh yeah,
somehow
absolutely.
with,
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah. It's just
so
another
there is,
SQL server. There is nothing different here. It is just another. That is what I wanted to show you how it works.
oh, okay.
When I connect to this database, now you're seeing all these things. It looks all messy and all. You don't even know what the heck. If you're a DBA, you may think, what the heck is all these things? I don't even know. I don't know. It's something like that. But this is all from an Amazon console perspective. From a database admin perspective, it is just another database. And that is what I wanted to show you. And that is the reason I powered on that other SQL Server, because we're going to use the SQL Server Management Studio on that server to connect to this database, which is in Amazon. Even if
Oh,
you
I
have, that is
see.
what we're going to do.
Okay.
Why is it taking so much time? Okay, it's coming up. We can see that now the memory is started coming up. Current activity connections. I think it is coming up. Now it may be doing some backup. So once this is done, it will do a backup and then only it will release to us. So this will come only after the database is ready. That is called the data point, connection point. Let's look at some FAQs here, just for the sake of it. So what is Amazon RDS? Amazon Relational Database Service. Okay, RDS stands for Amazon Relational Database Service. It's a managed service that makes it easy to set up, operate, and scale relational databases in the cloud. It provides cost-efficient and resizable capacity while managing time-consuming database administration tasks, freeing up you to focus on your application. And that is what they're saying, you forget about the time-consuming database administration tasks. Let us do that, and you manage on your application and business. So it gives all these databases, which relational database engine does Amazon RDS support? It supports Amazon Aurora, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle SQL Server, and Postgres. What does Amazon RDS manage on my behalf? Okay, here it is. What does Amazon RDS manage on my behalf? For me, what are the Amazon RDS manages the work involved in setting up a relational database. So you don't have to worry about installing SQL Server. You don't have to worry about provisioning the infrastructure capacity, installing database software, patching and performing backups and patching and all those things. They will take care of it. Okay. So when would I use Amazon RDS versus Amazon EC2 relational database AMI? So the server that we have is an Amazon EC2 AMI, correct, which has things. So they are asking, when would I use Amazon RDS versus EC2? Amazon Web Services provide a number of database alternatives for developers. Amazon RDS enables you to run fully featured relational database while offloading database administration. Using one of our many relational databases, Amazon allows you to manage your relational data. There are important differences between these alternatives that makes one more cloud database with AWS. Okay. So, they are saying, you could use both, but there are some differences, and I would probably able to explain some differences when that thing comes up. So what is a database instance? And I think that is what actually, Kashif, you asked, you can think of a DB instance as a database environment in the cloud with compute, storage, and resources. So it's DB instance is what they say, but it is just like your normal database instance, okay?
Okay, thanks.
So here it is. How do I access my running database? Once your database instance is available, it is not ready for us, you can retrieve the endpoint, via the DB instance description. And once you have the endpoint, you can connect it using your management tools, whatever management tool you want to do it. How many DB instances can I run with Amazon RDS? By default, customers are allowed to have up to a total of 40 Amazon RDS instances. So you can create up to 40 RDS instances. Of those 40, up to 10 can be, so it is not all SQL, so you can see that there are some limitations. These are all, I don't think for exam and all they ask these things, but it may be good for you to know. You can have up to 40 RDS instances, but up to 10 can be Oracle or SQL Server instances under the license included model. All 40 can be used. So if you want to use all 40, you can use for Amazon Aurora, MySQL, and MariaDB. So if you're using SQL Server Oracle, you can only do up to 10 instances, okay? So those who know about the database schemas and all, there is a question about how many databases or schemas can I run with DB instances. You can have up to 30 databases per instance. So every instance you create, you can only create up to 30 databases. In a SQL Server, probably you could create 100, but here they are limiting you to create only 30 databases per RDS instance. So if you want to have more than 30, then you need to create 2 RDS instances, okay? Maintenance window and all is understood, you can create that, database engine versions, they provide different versions. So you can see that, currently Amazon supports SQL Server 2008 R2, 2012, 2014, and 2016. These are all versions are Amazon currently supporting all these different versions of SQL servers. There are more of DB questions. So billing, you can see the billing instance. DB instance is based on the class, DB instance on a partial DB. So it's based on a full hour basis. Not only that, they will also charge you for the storage that you use. How many IO requests per month. There is also a small, how many queries and how many database requests are coming. They will charge you a small amount for that. If you are using provisioned IOPS, there will be additional charge for that. Backup storage, you are telling Amazon to take backups and they have to store that backup somewhere. So they are going to charge you for the backup storage. So if you're doing all that things, you will be getting billed for that. Okay. There is some information about free tier here. There is also something called as reserved instances. You can probably do reserved instances, and you all know what reserved instances are. So if you are 100% sure that you're going to use that particular database instance type for a longer time, you can go with the reserved instances. Automated backups, so these you may want to read all these things just to get some idea, and there's too much information is there anyway. All right, so looks like our database server is now ready. You can see that it is available. It's currently, you can see some performance, and this is the database point. You can see that the port number it is listening is 1443. This is what your complete database name is. So you can copy that and you can connect to it. So before going there, I just wanted to show you some performance. You can see that the CPU utilization, how many database connections are there, how much storage is available, freeable memory, write-offs, IOPS. You can see a whole lot of instances information here. You can see some latest metrics. You can see here your system connections. You can see that how many DB connections are there, what is the CPU utilization, what is the free memory, how many IOPS are there. Every information is actually there. My browser is not working correctly, otherwise you could do that. I'm not seeing all that option. So you can see all these network throughput, memory options, everything is right there. You can take a snapshot. Snapshot is basically, you're taking an instant copy of your thing. You can reboot your SQL servers. You can modify the changes if you want. I think, you want to change it to multi-AZ environment. If you want to do that, all you need to do is just check on this and say, okay, what it does is it will automatically create another mirror for you. That's all you need to do. You don't need to worry about creating another server, configuring cluster and all. It is as simple as that. That is why they gave that option. That is why they are asking for, they were asking for that multi-subnet and all, because in future, once things are working fine and you want to have a multi-AZ deployment, you can simply do that with that. So you can see that, it is pretty much, it finished off the backup. It actually created a backup instance. You can see the logs here. There are information about, all the events that are happened. It actually created the database instance, then it is backing up the thing. It finished the backup, so you can see all that information there, right there. So these are all the different logs. You can see these are all SQL things. If you want to see these logs, really you want to take a, you want to watch it, you can actually, I think it shows some videos how your logs will looks like. You can actually see that, or you can even see the logs right here. You can see the logs, what is happening on the servers console. So these are things that may be useful for DBAs, so they can see that, what are the things that happen at the back end when they were doing that installation. All right, everybody is good on that at this point. So we are actually good. Our database server is kind of ready now. So now the question is, we need to connect to this database server, right? You don't know whether there is any, so you don't see any servers or anything. If you go to our instances, you don't see any database servers or anything here. You see here, there is nothing here because this is hidden. Actually speaking, Amazon is running a server with 200 gig storage with multiple subnets and all at the back end. So if you go here and look at the VPC, you can probably see the subnets and all it might have created there. Subnets was already there, but you can see the security groups. If you look at class 10 VPC, you can see the security group it would have created for SQL Server. This is the one that we are using. So nothing much here. So let's go and connect
We
to the
use the old one.
Yeah, we used our one. So now I want to connect to the database server. I have a SQL Server here. I wanted Management Studio, and I'm going to put my connection string here. You don't need to put the port number here because Microsoft already know port number 1443 is the default port number. We're going to use a SQL Server authentication. Anybody remember what was our username? Class 10
DB user.
I don't know. So what we can do is we can look at from here. You go to this RDS instance and click on here. Click on here. It will tell you your username, class 10 user. Okay, that is the username. It's not class 10 DB user. It's called class 10 user, and the password was welcome 22. Now I'm going to connect to this server now. Here you go. So we connected to our database server. Is it anything different from a normal DB server? You have databases there.
No.
You have system databases there. You have database snapshot. You can see some RS admin database. You can see the logins. You can create all the logins here. You can see the server roles. Is it anything different anywhere? You know, you can see always on. You can see management. You can see integration. So this one, the one I'm showing you right now, is the RDS instance, and the one on the top is actually the local database. Are there any difference between these things, guys? Any difference? There's nothing difference here. So it is exactly the same thing, and you see that how you connect to a relational database service. Now you can connect from anywhere, any application. It is right there available. So if you want to now create a database, you can come here, you can create a database called, you can create a, class 10 DB. It is all, where is it? It's all storing in that database server, 200 gig storage. It is going to do that. You can come here, you can do the, recovery model. You want it simple or whatever, you can select your type. This compatibility level you cannot change because it's coming through the parameter group. That's why. But other than that, you can see all these options. You can see the file options, and you can create a database. So it is actually created this new database for you right here. So now you have a database. How many databases you can create like this? Can anybody tell me? I just created one. How many you can create?
10.
Yeah, you can create up to 10 databases because that's what SQL Server it supports. Any questions? I mean, everybody is quiet today. Only Kashif is talking. Anybody else? Muthu is not there today. Muthu is very silent. Okay. What about Yogendra? He was asking some question. He's also Nasir Reddy. Nobody has any questions? Ravi, Teja, Kader. Jacob, you good?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So I think this is it. There is nothing rocket science here, but you got to really understand the the thing. So again, understand the security groups, parameter. These are things that might come for questions. Exams. What is a parameter group? What is a options group? External licenses. If you want, you can provide that. Subnet group is very, very important because if you want to do it in a multi-VZ environment, you have to create a subnet group. Okay.
So one question I have, let's say you have everything running and then you decide after a couple of months that, it's costing too much money and you want to, get rid of this. So is there any way we can copy all the data from S3 to your local, system?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like a database server. You can back it up. All you need to do is you just go and, take a backup, and retrieve the backup. You can
Oh, I
actually
see.
do that
Okay.
and then restore it from there.
Okay.
So you can do, restore to point in time. This is your backup. You can actually restore it, this is where you can actually specify your database backup and things like that. You could actually do that.
Deepu, I have a question. Like right now, you're able to access this DB just because you already have an instance of SQL Server. What if you don't have one? Like, is that a package that you can download, or how do you access if you don't have an existing?
Correct. Yeah. So are you familiar with SQL servers, Jacob?
No, just I've seen like you using it,
You don't need
runtime
a
scripts.
SQL server. What you need is, in order to access a SQL server, okay, I know only from a SQL server. From Oracle perspective, I don't know what exactly you need. But for a SQL server, if you want to access a SQL server, you need something called as Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So you can download and install that Management Studio on any server. So this is SQL Server Management Studio. But SQL Server also has many other components. For example, SQL Server, installation center. You can see that these are all SQL Server's component. You can see that there's so many SQL Server configuration manager. I just want to show you this. Here is where you actually specify in a SQL Server what type of protocols it supports and things like that. These are all needed only on a local server. In our server, you don't need to worry about it. But when you install a SQL Server, a full-fledged SQL Server, all these tools will come by default. Now, do you need all these things? I don't know. I never used any of these things, but I have used this configuration manager for configuring protocols. And the most important tool that you need is actually the SQL Server Management Studio. So you can actually go to any SQL Server installation binary and you can just install only the Management Studio. So if you have a Windows Server or a Windows 7, and you want to access a SQL Server database like this, all you need is just install the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. You will be able to connect.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Or you can, if your application, you don't need, as long as you want to manage the database, that is when you need Management Studio. If you don't want to manage, you want an application to connect to the database, you can do that. There is something called ODBC. Anybody know that? I'll just probably show you that. Anybody know what an ODBC is? Open. Anybody know?
Open
DSN.
database connection.
Yeah. What is it?
You create a connection between your application to the database server.
Right. So that is what it is. So ODBC data source, or it is called as DSN, data source name. So you can do that here. There are different settings here. Most of your Windows application, Microsoft applications, if they want to talk to the application, you don't use this. Here in this one, you specify, you specify a SQL Server client, and then you specify your DB server name, give it a name, and then you specify your mm, you specify your database server name. I think here you don't need to, you might need to specify the thing. So you can do that here. You specify your cost and user, welcome one. I'm just going to give it a try, okay? Next and finish. It failed. It could be because I didn't put the port number here, so I think I need to put 1443. Okay, I think I know the problem. I'm using a client version 11. I think we are connecting to a little higher version of the thing. I think we need to download the correct version of the ODBC driver here. So there is a thing, you can see that, there is drivers. These are the only drivers that are available. Let me see whether this will work. I use actually the native client. Let me try with that client. Okay, it's not connecting. So basically, I'm not going to troubleshoot this, but this is how you connect. And once you do that, and you can specify that data source name in your application. So in your application, whether it is a .NET application or a Java application, and you want to talk to the database, you don't put that big string. No, that is not. Nobody put this big string like this in your applications or anything. All you put is your data source name. You specify that is your data source name, then the application will talk to this DSN and connect to the database. Okay. Give it a try one more time. Is it class 10 user was the user, right? Yeah, it is not the DB problem, I'm sure, because okay, now it worked. You see here, test completed successfully. We should not put the port number there. So we connected, we created a DSN. So now you can see that it has a database name called ZS. So in your .NET application, maybe in your connection string, or maybe in your if you are an Oracle guy, there is a file called tnsnames.ora file. You can actually specify this thing. So Nasir Reddy wants to ask something. Okay. Nasir Reddy, I have not muted you. You are muted by yourself. I have not muted. You're on phone, so I think that's a problem. All right, you have a question? All right, go ahead.
Hello, Deepu, can you hear me?
Yes.
So you have connected to RDS database from Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you don't have Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio on the Windows instance, or it may be Linux.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you connect from a Windows or a Linux to a RDS instance, RDS database?
That's what I'm saying. So if you want to manage a SQL Server,
okay,
where you want to create a user or you want to create a database and things like that, you want to do some securities and logins and things like that, you have to have Management Studio.
okay.
Without Management Studio, you cannot do anything. But if you have an application, and if that application wanted to talk to the database, you don't need Management Studio. So for example, have you seen I don't know, let me see. I can show you something here. Have you seen a web.config file? You heard about? Web.config. So, I just want to show you some samples here. So I'm not a developer, but I think most of you guys are probably know some development and all. So if you look at, this is actually a database file, I don't know, it can show here. So here you see here, this is actually a mission.config file, it is not the right thing. So this is how they specify, the developers write their code inside this, okay?
Okay.
In this config file, I don't think this is, here I don't see application pool, only we are seeing. Let me close it. Let me try to see. So maybe there will be an example one that could probably show you the database. Okay, unfortunately, these ones, they are not showing, but let me see. Let's give it one more try. Okay, here it is. See here, this is a web.config file. Within the connection file, they are specifying the data source name. You see that?
Yes.
So in that data source name, you go to specify your data. No. Here there may be, so here it is, see the connection string name. You see the connection string name?
Yes, sir.
So this is actually their
Endpoint.
web.config file. You know, in that file you specify, all you need to specify is you specify your data source name. This is called as the DSN. So you normally give it a name, so you don't need to specify any other thing. All you need to specify is that particular thing and your username and password. Now, nobody put the username and password in a web.config file. If anybody do that, I would say that is a wrong way to do it. So these DBAs, you can see that, you know, the DBAs, you can see that the connection string is born here, and then they normally encrypt the password and put it here. So there are ways they know how to create encryption. So they encrypt. So you will see a junk value here in the username and password field, but it is actually the correct username and password. They would have used some encryption software to do that. So all you need is you specify this and your application will start working.
Okay.
So this is the way you specify in SQL Server world. If it is in Oracle Server, there is a file called tnsnames.ora file. You might have heard that file, right? tnsnames.ora file. Anybody seen? So here is where in tnsnames.ora file, this is how it looks like. In the tnsnames.ora file, you specify, see here, it's a simple thing. Here you specify your protocol. Here you specify your database name and your port. It will specify here. You don't need any management studio or anything for that. Here you specify your database details and then your application comes. That's how the application is actually coming. Now, this is just one way. There are many different ways an application owner can reference a database in the application. There may be options there. Sometimes it will be fire. It is, again, it should not be always web.config file. It could be some DB configuration. It depends on where that application is using. So you need, the application should have a place somewhere that specify where the database options are. So you specify the port number, you specify the name, everything there.
Okay.
Okay. Now.
Okay. Then how do people set up a LAMP or a WAMP server on the Amazon cloud?
What is that?
LAMP or WAMP? LAMP or a W or WAMP? And either one. How do the people set up here?
So you got to tell me a little bit more about LAMP. So LAMP is, you know, Linux, Apache, you know, that is called platform as a service. When we started the class, I told you it's a platform as a service. That comes with everything within there. You know, you can have a LAMP stack or a .NET stack or whatever, you know. In that case, it comes with application server. Again, you have to configure it.
Everything.
They provide everything as part of the package.
No, not as a part of infrastructure.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can see that, you know, now the database, you know, it's finished the backup, you know, it created a snapshot, you know, you can see the performance now here going, you know, this is it basically. So very important topic. You need to really understand this, how you really want to work on this, you know. So this, you cannot change this, you know, that is the thing. So it shows what is the security group is allowing this, the username and password. You need to remember the password. If you forget it, that's it, okay. You won't be able to connect to it. So basically this is it. This is actually a SQL Server running with all the details here. You can see that, you know. So if you go here and you see the details, pretty clean and neat, correct? There's nothing big rocket science here, but, you know, configuring a relational database as a service. Now, you can create multiple databases. So just imagine I have a SQL Server running for me. I can create 10 databases there now. It's a small instance. It works fine. You know, I don't need to worry about it. Do I need to worry about backups? Do I need to worry about patching? Do I need to worry about cluster failover or anything? Amazon is supporting that, and that is what they are taking that money from. So I don't need to buy any Windows. Do I need to spend any Windows license? No. Do I need to spend any SQL Server license? Nothing. It is so easy and quickly. Otherwise, just imagine, if you want to have a SQL Server, it's not easy, right? You have to buy the license, you need to have Windows Server, then you need to go and install the whole SQL Server. How much time it took for us to create this? Hardly 10, 15 minutes, right? And now that's it. It is highly available. You can leave it, you can shut it down, you can stop it, whatever you want, you can do it. So I think, this is good. Any questions? Otherwise, we'll stop here, guys. I just wanted to make sure. But, I would say definitely you go and read about, the thing I was actually showing here, FAQs. You may definitely want to read a little bit more about the thing. There will be some videos that will show you. So these are the databases. You can see that some of the advantages they're saying. It is very easy to administer. It is highly scalable. That is the beauty of it. If you think that your database server is having problems, performance issues and things like that, you can actually go here and change the thing. You can actually go here and modify the instance type and things like that. See here, if I have performance problems, so you can always start with it. You can actually go and start with a different entry. It's just a matter of clicking and changing and say continue. It is going to upgrade your server with a different version. Your database will remain same, everything will remain same. So that is the beauty of all these things. It's very secure. It's inexpensive, they say. I don't know. You pay very low rates and only for the resources you actually consume. In addition, you benefit from the option of on-demand pricing with no upfront or long-term commitments. So you can see that all these companies are using Amazon RDS. Not all these companies, believe me, everybody is using RDS. In fact, we started using Amazon RDS in our environments, and we are seeing some good performance and people are kind of happy. But only people who are disappointed are our DBAs. Unfortunately, because they kind of feel that, if this is there, then do I need a DBA? I mean, I need a DBA, 1 or 2 person to basically make sure that the databases are ready, the permissions are there, that's all. I don't need any DBA to back up. Otherwise, you talk to a DBA, ask him what is his day-to-day job. His day-to-day job is, upgrading SQL servers, patching SQL servers, backup and restore. These are all the things that DBAs do normally. Especially backup and restore is one of the main things these DBAs do, because they want to take production backups and restore it into multiple developers to give it to them for their testing and things like that, So those works are gone. So I don't need 25 DBAs anymore. I just need only 4 or 5 DBAs who are smart enough to manage my thing. So who is actually the database administrator here? You can kind of say you are a DBA here, or you are kind of a DBA. So that's why you being a cloud administrator, you should have a pretty good understanding about these databases and things like that. Otherwise, when there is a problem, you don't know how to troubleshoot, what is the port number. And now this is the default port number. I don't recommend using this. You may want to definitely change this. 1443 is the default SQL Server license. I don't think any enterprise companies use 1443. You should change a different port number so that, your app. Otherwise, everybody know 1443, they will try it, hackers and all will try to access this. Maybe we could ping that. I'm not sure you can ping that and connect. Okay. So maybe you guys, anybody has a SQL server at home, you can try to connect to this, because we expose this to public. So maybe you could connect from there to this database. Anybody has a SQL server or a management studio? So you can see that it has an IP address. This is it won't allow ping because ping is disabled, but this is the IP address 34.196.243.18. So that is it. So if you go here and I can put that IP address here, I'm sure it might connect. I'm not sure. Let's try. 34. Oh no, it won't work. It won't work. Can anybody tell me? I say it won't work. If I put this IP address here instead of this, it won't work. Why?
It's a public IP address, right? That's why.
That's right. It's a public IP address. So from internally it won't connect. But from your home, you want to connect to my database now, you can use that IP address or that fully qualified URL. All right. So that is it. So let me do a couple things here. Let me shut down this instance, and we going to delete this because I'm done with the class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. So when you try to delete an Amazon RDS instance, Amazon will ask you, do you want to create a final snapshots? Because if anytime you want that database or anything you need, he will ask you, you want to take a final snapshot. Its snapshot is nothing but a backup. But I don't want anything. I don't have any important data. So I'm just saying no. And you can see that you have to acknowledge it so that you ever go back to Amazon, they will prove you that you just checked that and then you can delete your database. So it's actually deleting and it's going. So I might have paid for an hour, probably $2. We could look at this billing if you want tomorrow to take a look at how much it charged. So I'm sure it will not be more than $2 or $3. So it's going to delete that. I also want to go here and shut down this instance for now. It's all gone. Okay, so here itself in this home page of Amazon itself, there is a lot of things. DB instances 1 of 40 you can create. How many? There are things you can see that how many you can create. There is all that information. There is some good documentations here. So you can see that Amazon Relational Database Services, that itself is running as a service and that is working. I think you can see the complete, service catalog here. So that's it, guys. So I think we'll stop here. I don't want to it's already 11 o'clock. So we'll stop here. So we'll have class tomorrow. Yesterday, I was so tired I couldn't do it. So tomorrow we'll have class. Tomorrow we will look at probably some other new topics. Mostly I will be talking about device farm. Device farm is where you can do some mobile testing and all, very interesting topic. So we'll probably talk about device farm. And then you have VPN is there. I know, don't forget. I know, I'm not forget it. I will tell you VPN. We wanted to look at is Route 53 is another important thing. Wanted to show you guys actually how to connect to Amazon CLI. Probably I will try to do that CLI a little bit tomorrow and then device farm. Okay. So I think that is what something I'll plan to do tomorrow. Let's see. So that's it, guys. Good night. And I will see you guys tomorrow, 9 p.m.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
All right,
Good night.
Good night.